Welcome to the Employment Justice Lab live Saturday sessions. My name is Rethabile Konopo, and I'll be your co-host. Today, our conversations will be with Charity Kiki Kennedy, one of the mental health experts here in Botswana. And our conversation will be moving from uh, mental health during and post COVID-19, especially now looking at frontline domestic workers. It has been this has taken the pandemic has taken a serious toll on everybody else. And just to highlight this past weeks, we have seen the one of the most heartbreaking videos of George Floyd being knee-jacked by police officers in the United States of America and getting killed. We see protests going around the world, and we would like to also share with the world that we are also with you. We are, as Black humanity, we are also with all those who are going through a really rough patch, especially now here that we've just the lockdown has just been lifted up here in Botswana. It has been one of the most heartbreaking situations, people losing their jobs. I'm not just talking about frontline workers, frontline domestic workers being affected directly by the pandemic. I'm speaking about even taxi drivers to combi drivers losing their jobs, not earning, to have people working on the streets not being able to sell their food anymore. We see street vendors not being able to operate their businesses. This has had a serious toll on the mental health of individuals, especially those who are low-income earners. And today on the studio, I have Charity Kiki Kennedy. Is one of the mental health experts here in Botswana, and we are going to be discussing mental health illnesses during and post COVID-19. I believe Charity is now ready to introduce. Hi, Charity. How are you doing? How have you been dealing with the lockdown since now it has been lifted?
Well, I don't know if you mean at a personal level or at a official level, because it's
Well, in all kinds of level. I mean, there's also personal and also in terms of business and how you have been able to, as an expert in mental health, how have you been able to assist some of your colleagues or so let's talk about your business and how you have been coping.
okay. So far we have the quarantine sites ongoing because of the issue of cross border. So now we have some of our team members assisting quarantine site. In fact, before the lockdown, like soon the lockdown started, we are part of the quarantine site psychosocial support team that was responding to COVID-19. And also we had online counseling for general population in the country. And yeah, as for now, after the lockdown, we're getting a lot of workplace mental health programs where we now try to realign the employees with the new changes so that they are able to cope and become productive.
Yes. So I know you have founded a network called Botswana Network of Mental Health, Botswana Mental Health Network. Can you just tell me a bit about your work and how it started?
Okay, first foremost, I'm a survivor of major depression. 2010, I was diagnosed with major depression, and I tried to go through the journey of healing. And in 2014, I decided to start something to that effect. That's when I founded the organization. So the organization basically does mental health promotion, mental illness awareness, and offers counseling and tries to integrate mental health into general life. Talk of integration of mental health into issues like HIV and other issues that are existing in the community. So it's been quite a long time,
Yes.
but not that long, but we've been trying.
Yes. So, what can you tell the world? What is mental health, and how can mental illnesses be diagnosed? Just to give them heads up. Yes.
Yeah, well, we have different definitions around mental health that are guided by World Health Organization. But in short, I'll just say when you talk of mental health, you're talking a state whereby an individual realizes their own potential, they're able to cope with the normal stresses of life, and they are productive and fruitful in their communities. So when you look at the factors surrounding coping with stress, factors surrounding with being productive, we find that it is an issue of social issues, psychological issues, psychiatric issues. When they are meshed and given a certain balance, that's when we can say that's mental health. Also, looking at the environment itself. So, those are some of the factors. But now, when you talk of mental illnesses, it's whereby now we're talking of a psychological and emotional condition that stops an individual from functioning in a normal perceived way over a long period of time. That's when now we can term it a mental illness.
Yes. So, just to get an insight on what has been happening during the pandemic, we understand that a lot of people were told to work from home. I mean, we've all been working from home during the lockdown. We had the first 28 days lockdown, and then we went on to 21 days. So almost 2 months being in being locked down, we couldn't even have. Nobody had that freedom. So basically, some of the human rights we felt as humanity felt like some of our human rights were being stripped out from us. And as a mental health expert, what would you say could have happened during this pandemic? I mean, how would you explain the kind of impact that this pandemic would have on the mental health of a worker?
Okay, we need to first take the journey back to as and when there was an outbreak. Obviously, when the outbreak started like being felt in Africa, even not just in Africa, when Italy was starting to experience those high numbers, everyone started to feel that anxiety, that panic, that fear. So now to a point that now nations were forced to lock their countries down so that they try to contain the virus. So the lockdown on itself, it was a major move that affected the normal routine of many people's lives. You are used to going out as
Yes,
a
yes,
coping mechanism, like you meet different people, but now you are forced to stay in one place for a period of 2 months. So already there is a lot of
yeah,
adjustment that was needed to be done. So the whole thing, I would say, in my point of view, it was more on to people suffering from adjustment disorder or situational depression. There was a situation people were trying to adjust,
yeah,
not going to work or working from home, having kids, having family, trying to adapt to technology, which is not an easy thing, by the way. So you mean there were a lot of
yeah,
there were a
yeah,
lot of challenges that were forcing people to readjust the normal way of doing things. So all those they were pushing forward anxiety, pushing forward situational depression, pushing forward issues of gender-based violence, pushing forward issues of
yeah,
the panic from the angle of kids, like the children's mental health was also affected, and parents had to balance the
yeah.
two. You are an employee or you are used to going out to sell something to make money and put food on the table, but now everything has changed. You need to readjust. So it was more really on to adjustment disorder.
Yes, yes, most definitely. And there's one more question also, that if you suffer from a mental health condition, are you entitled to the same protections against discrimination that you'd be entitled to if you had a physical mental condition? What would you say about that?
There's a lot of inequality when you talk of the physical health and the mental health. It's like humanity has drawn a line to say health is health when you talk of physical health, but when you talk of the mental health, because it's not visible, it's like you can just get it, you can just get over it. It's nothing. It's all in the mind. It's all
Yeah.
in the head.
Yeah.
So the discrimination is, it's serious. I mean, I don't know how to portray it, but the discrimination is very, 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 very visible. And I think it's time for different nations, different individuals at different levels to try reconsider the issue of investing on mental health. For instance, you can't be judged because you have HIV, or you can't be judged because you have cancer. But the moment you have a mental health problem, it's like you've done a terrible sin, or you've done something that you can't be accommodated in the society, to a point that if you have a mental health problem, one loses their job as compared to when they have a physical problem. Little do we know, I don't know, do we understand that there is no difference between physical and mental illnesses. It is an
Yeah.
illness after all. There is a quote by Michelle Obama. She says, an illness is an illness,
Yeah.
whether it affects your leg, your arm, your head, the mind, and illness is an illness. So we shouldn't draw the lines. So there is serious need for advocacy at a high level stakeholder, for people to understand mental health for what it is, not for what they think it is.
Yeah. So, there have been, just this past weeks, we've been seeing protests across the world with regard to George Floyd's killing, of portraying discrimination against Black people. And, I spoke about when we began there in the show, I spoke about being knee-jerked. And somebody this week just mentioned that, being knee-jerked is just like a literal metaphor for a system that we live in, that if you are marginalized, because I understand that there's a lot of marginalization for mental illnesses, because first, like you mentioned, some of these illnesses cannot be tested, like HIV and AIDS, where you go for a laboratory test and then it comes positive or negative. We have a lot of people suffering from injustices, yet still quiet and living amongst us. And we have also people suffering from serious mental health illnesses, and yet they go on as normal and portraying a life as normal as everybody else. And but these people are suffering from insomnia, they're suffering from getting visual disorders at night because they can't sleep. They're suffering from hallucinations, and they're hearing voices. And just this week, with a whole lot of protests around discrimination. Now when we just kind of link this to mental health conditions, what would you think could be done in terms of policy reform, right? To make to be able to incorporate mental health as a disability in Botswana.
Okay, that was quite a long one. Yeah.
Yeah,
We first need to understand that we have what we call World Health Organization. They have the guidelines for mental health programming, and all their member states, including Botswana, they are part
yeah,
of that. They have access to those guidelines. So if you can just look across Africa, not just Botswana, most African states are operating on outdated mental health legislation and policies. Like, for instance, in Botswana, our mental health legislation is for 1971. Apparently, I sit in the National Mental Health Advisory Committee. We are trying to repeal the act. So you can find what you
yeah,
in most cases you find that we are operating with outdated mental health legislation and policy. So the first point is for
yeah,
legislators to work on the acts, that are comprehensive to the now, not the then. Because you find that as much as we are
yeah,
there in communities, the representation of the young mind, the representation of the future is not really felt in those committees, because people are still stuck in the psychiatry that they learned so many years ago, and life has really revolved. So it is a matter of trying to incorporate what happened back then and what is happening right now, and come up with robust beautiful policies that can be implemented and reinforced. So for us to really have better mental health policies, we need to also have robust mental health legislation in place to guide the whole process, more especially when we're trying to come back to the workplace. Right now, we have employees
Yeah.
being fired because of their mental health status, but somebody cannot be fired because they are HIV positive. So back then, we used to have HIV patient clients being fired, but now with time, because of policies and legislation, now you see that people know that you gotta respect someone's status. So as far as we've done with HIV, I think we need to also transition fast to try do something in the line of mental health programming. And like I
Yeah.
was saying, workplace, there are no robust laws that are in place to protect an employee who is undergoing severe depression, who is undergoing
Yeah.
whatever mental health problem that can be there. But you find that more protection will be given to that person who is presenting a physical, relatable problem, unlike the one
Yeah.
that is more onto the mental health side. So it's an issue of having high level stakeholders, starting from our president, going to the Africa Union, going to the UN, trying to walk the talk. A lot has been said about mental health this, mental health that. But when it comes to funding, you find that now you have to embed mental health under something else for you to be supported to program for the general population. So it's a matter of the leadership really taking the matter onto their hands and support mental health initiatives.
True. Yes, and one more question: do you still have the right to keep your medical condition private? I mean, you're talking about how this thing needs to be a systematic, because I can see a lot of our systems are working in silos. You know, there's a lot of individualism. Uh, we don't have in our workplaces. We generally don't have counseling sessions for our employees. We don't have, especially after this pandemic. I'm sure a lot, I'm sure Charity, a lot of organizations can do with a lot of corporate workshops being tailor made specifically for the organizations through your organization. And so the question that people are always asking, because there's a lot of confidentiality issues. People go through divorce, people go through people end up having losing their children, people experience death and they mourn. And the mourning process also, is something that also needs to be defined in a way that it should be something kept confidential, because I don't think a lot of people want to come back to work and feel that everybody else is empathizing. Because I know somebody told me that, the worst thing to do right now after losing my husband is to go back to work, because I'm gonna be getting a lot of, oh, shame, you went through a lot, maybe we might not shouldn't give you the same work you're doing. And a lot of people end up even losing confidence in what they're doing. So do you still have the right to keep your medical condition private, Charity, within the framework that you're speaking about?
Okay. Well, what I would say in with the experience of the work that we've been doing, we found out that most employees are not comfortable to have a counselor or a psychologist placed in the workplace for the reason that they believe that confidentiality can be breached, more especially in terms
Yeah,
of retrenchment or any other issue. They'll start with those who have a record of mental health history or whatever. So uh, most employees that are very, very, very,
yeah,
very uncomfortable to use counseling services that are provided within their employer space. But the concept of counseling, we have what we call ethics and confidentiality. In a normal operating counseling setup, there is no way a counselor or a psychologist is expected to breach that confidentiality to the employer about the record of the employee. If it's happening, it's unethical.
Yeah.
So you have the right to
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
your uh, your mental health status private. But I also throw it back to the employees and say, at times you find that feel of you feeling like people will be over sympathetic over me, it also says a lot about
Mm-hmm.
your
Yeah.
healing, because it shows that within yourself something is not really right, because under normal circumstances we gotta receive support from the support structures that are available. But if you feel like people are
Yeah.
like much more feeling pity for you, shows that there is a journey of healing that you need to undertake. And also I'd say, if the ground was normal, it would be nice to have your
Yeah.
immediate supervisor understanding your mental health status, for the reason that there may be days where you are feeling low. I'll just take my example. I can't do a 9 to 5 job because my major depression that is that I don't want to go anywhere. I just want to work home, sleep, work home. But now
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
companies are not accommodative of that. They don't even understand why should somebody be given a day off because they had a breakup. So now you find that
Yeah.
if the
Yeah.
ground was normal, the employers understanding this whole thing of mental health, they're empowered enough, the employees should be comfortable to open up and say, I'm a survivor of bipolar. So at times I feel like this. But now, sadly, most employers, when you disclose, that's the end of your job. So it is a tricky
Yeah.
one unless and until employers also try to understand the extent of mental health in the workplace.
Exactly. Charity, you spoke about the ability to be able to open up. I know it's a tricky one, right? And I know that there's so much stigma already around HIV and AIDS. And
Mm.
somebody was speaking about COVID-19 and how a lot of people have been stigmatized or have been caught positive. And the sad part about, we have experienced a lot of HIV and AIDS and affecting mental health, or mental health of employees in Botswana. Mind you, Botswana had one of the most highest percentages in HIV and AIDS back in the days. Well, now has been controlled, and because of the medication that has been prescribed, things have been under control. And now we then had COVID-19, and a lot of issues were going around. Oh, if you are chronic, you might be highly at risk, especially if you are diabetic. Especially, I mean, chronic means everything. But you know the emphasis really here in Botswana was that the fear being confined was that we have a lot of HIV and AIDS issues here. But in the instead, we are not even looking as chronic in terms of other issues, especially mental health. So what do you think could have been done better to support Botswana during this pandemic, except for providing subsidies and just providing food hampers? What could have been done really to as a support base for Botswana during this pandemic?
Okay. I must appreciate to say efforts were done to have some toll free lines that were very overwhelmed. And we've seen ministries like education coming forth with their counseling lines for toll free lines for students to call.
Yeah,
But in my point of view, I thought it was necessary for the government to have convened all the mental health and psychosocial support service providers, like from the civic society to government, and say we have a population of 2 million, we have so many districts, and how can we go about strategize on the issue of the counseling aspect, because we understand the food hampers are part of the social services.
yeah,
We understand that that one, it was well taken care of, but there was a need for toll free lines that were effective managed to the district level, so that now we know that maybe as a so and so NGO, you are responsible for this area, you'll be providing counseling services online, exploring the available platforms like WhatsApp, let me just say social media platforms, and also maybe having the toll-free lines, because to some point, we are so overwhelmed with calls. People who wanted counseling, some they said, I don't have a time to call, I don't use WhatsApp, but I need to talk to someone, I need counseling. So if maybe there was that consultative, I know it was an emergency, but we managed to come up with strategies like food hampers in that emergency. So what I picked as I went around district council
Yeah.
trying to propose that we need to have counseling services. Everyone was like, no, we are busy. Food hampers, we gotta give people food hampers. This, they place, I
Yeah.
understand food is a need, but also we don't want to find ourselves that post COVID-19 we have another pandemic in a form of mental illnesses. But really, I think
Yeah.
what lagged was an issue of consultation, consulting those who have been on ground to advise as civic society how can we collectively work towards offering counseling for the general population, because government alone uh, they can't manage, as well as civic society alone we couldn't manage alone. So there was a need of that consultation, given that already we had NGOs who were doing something on ground to that effect. So the need was more given
Yeah.
on to quarantine sites, frontliners and quarantine sites, and then to what else, to food hampers and those subsidies that you were mentioning. But as the aspect of mental health, for the general public, it was really missing. But it is
Yeah.
well. We keep on fighting for
Yeah.
the best.
And and yeah. I know that we are now transitioning into technology, major technology, especially educational technology, whether it's human rights being access to justice, especially because mental health is one of the key elements really with access to justice that we see in Botswana completely being unaddressed, and and pitting us who are in the social sector, who are into social impact. We are running nonprofits or even hybrid organizations where we are nonprofit for profit. And we during this pandemic, a lot of our work was not utilized. We saw government really advertising that small medium enterprises should be supported who are making masks. I said, there's something that there's a serious gap between uh, for profit and really social impact organizations, because this is where now I'm going into in terms of how do you think could have been done to collaborate, because we need a serious radical collaboration within our systems to be able to incorporate social impact organizations. I was just talking about the creative sector that has completely been underutilized during this pandemic. And I thought, we needed a lot of digital marketers during this time to be able to be given opportunities to come up with adverts that can help people understand how this pandemic can impact their lives, negatively or positively. But we saw a lot of brand organizations here in Botswana not utilized. So I'm talking about social impact organizations such as yours. And in terms of technology, how do you think we should move on in the next coming years? Because we know there will be a second wave of the pandemic, and we need to be ready, because right now everybody else is out there. We are mingling. We are, the liquor act has been amended in terms of now everybody else can access liquor in bars, and but obviously drinking from home. But we understand people we are human, we are social beings. People will gather. So what in terms of technology and how social impact organizations can be utilized, how do you think the government can be able to include us in terms of technology within the spheres?
It's a very it's a very tricky one because, like I said before, there was need to engage all the key players at a high level to say, okay,
Yeah,
fine, the creative industry, the non-governmental bodies, the business community, how are we going forward to try to tackle this issue? I don't even know in the COVID-19 task force who was sitting there, who was representing who, because I kept on hearing the task force, but I
exactly.
didn't know. I don't know. Maybe, I don't know, maybe we had our mother body organization there. I'm not sure. But all I'm trying to say is there was a need for that meeting, or for that, even not to say physically meeting, using technology, of course, to try see who can come on board and do what. But like we are saying, we are all
Yeah,
learning the process, we're going forward. But what I can just say is, I realized that uh, I don't know if our civic society we are weak. I don't know. Like the civic wing. I think maybe we also need the social impact organization. I think we also need that kind of a
yeah,
voice that is very collective to try
yeah,
push and foster such platforms. So it is a matter of coordination, really, to say who was coordinating what at what level
yeah,
for the collective voice of the civic society, of the creative industry, or other social impact bodies. So it's a very tricky one to have
yeah.
a
Do you
mix
think
up.
Yeah, do you think it's a matter of do you think it's a matter of us not being vocal, or is because it's a lack of funding? Because there's a lot of funding opportunities for profit, tenders given by government to SMEs, to private sectors. But I mean in terms of funding opportunities for social impact organizations in Botswana, do you think do we have enough to support us?
Now, that one is an obvious answer. We don't have much of social impact opportunities coming forth. It's more onto thematic areas. If a donor says, I want HIV, they want HIV. There's nothing you can do unless you try to align yourself to HIV. So you find that most of the time, all the social grants that are coming out, the social funding grants that are coming out, that are for specific thematic areas, like maybe GBV, maybe HIV, limited to a certain
Yeah,
area, not covering the broad civic society or social impact organization. So it's a matter of at that global fund level, when they are sitting discussing who is sitting who is sitting where to advocate for what,
yeah,
because obviously you find that those funds, they
yeah,
may come at a level of global fund, and there's the proposal that is submitted on behalf of the nation. So if maybe in the committee we don't have somebody advocating for creative industry use for utilized for health purposes, then there is no way they can get that opportunity. Even if the money comes, the funds comes, they are limited to those organizations that are falling specifically in the thematic areas that were written when applying. So I think it is really at a coordination level, who sits where to say what and advise on what.
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, Charity, you have spoken a lot, and I thought, what is your last word really to workers and organizations on mental health issues?
Okay, these are tough times. Most companies were not operating. Their cash flow is in a state. Everyone's anxiety is up there. There's issues of job security. People wonder if they'll be keeping their job for the next coming years. Some, they are working from home, but they're not used to that environment. They want to go out there and work, but the employers say no, work at home.
Yeah,
All those dynamics are really a burden to the employees' mental health. And research has shown that um, depression in the workplace has become a serious issue Burnout has become a serious issue in the workplace. But now, given a situation that is COVID-19 at hand, it exacerbates everything. Employees are in a serious need of counseling services, trainings on stress management, trainings on human dynamics, trainings on emotional intelligence. So, also to the HR management, it's very important to keep that close contact with the staff, check on them on a personal level to say, how are you doing if you are working at home? Are you coping? How are the kids? How is family? Try to break it down to a level whereby an employee feels like they are really part of the system. And also, if there are major changes that are to happen, try as much as possible to prepare your staff. Retrenchment, if you are to do it, you need to do counseling, pre counseling before you retrench them. And also at times try to engage them and say, this is the situation of the cash flow of the company. What do you think? What can we do to just trying to be inclusive? At times you may find that the solution for sustainability of the company lies within the
Yeah.
minds of employees, but you are limiting them because you fail to understand how this relationship works for the better of productivity and mental health of the company. And we have what we call presenteeism. I won't talk about absenteeism. I'll talk about presenteeism.
Yeah.
Presenteeism is whereby an employee is 9 to 5 present. They never take a day off. They come on time. They knock late. They
Yeah.
knock at time. But when you check the performance, it is zero. They are not performing at all, but they're always there. They just pack their bodies and then they wander with the mind. So that's one of the most dangerous a form of depression which drives loss of productivity in the workplace. Lots of companies are losing a lot of money because of such employees. You cannot delegate their task because they are there. So that's why you find that research is saying the cost of
Yeah.
absenteeism is higher than the cost of absenteeism. Because if somebody is absent, you delegate their task. But if they are there, what do you do? So let's try to check on our employee stress
Yeah.
levels, offer counseling, just try to be human with them. How is family? I mean, just try to relate at the most basic level of relationship, more especially the HR management, since they have that access to check on someone. How was your day? Make it a culture to have those
Exactly.
conversations that sound meaningless with your employee so that you can see where is their
Yeah.
mental health
Most
status.
definitely.
Yes, and also we can screen for depression. We can try
Yes.
to screen for depression and guide on the mental health status of the whole company to say, if you have this much people showing that they are in the state of mild or medium or major depression, then the company's mental health status is somewhere here. So these are the guidelines on what to do, like engaging some consultants or some professionals to try help plan the program for your staff's mental health.
Yes, definitely. So, Charity, where can the world or Botswana reach you? Because we need them to reach you for your amazing counseling sessions, for your amazing workshops, and maybe just to give them a schedule of what is coming up after this pandemic. I know you've been working tirelessly to have some online materials available for them to use.
Hello, Rita.
I know you've been working tirelessly to have some of your amazing courses available online.
Rita. Rethabile.
They can contact you.
Oh, Rethabile. Rethabile.